Assistive technology abandonment, addressing human services and why devices are abandoned by people with a variety of disabilities. People and technology. The independent living movement began to organize in the late 1960s and early 1970s as a part of the disability rights movement here in Berkeley, California. AT, along with ongoing proper training and maintenance, provides freedom and liberates individuals with a variety of disabilities, such as, but certainly not limited to, vision, hearing, speech, or mobility limitations or impairment. Using technology allows people with disabilities to perform activities of daily living, gain or maintain employment, attend school in the general education setting, participate in social events, and live more independent lives without relying on aid or forfeiting activities. Here you can see various types of AT. We have four-wheel walkers, AAC used for communication or alternative augmentative communication, behind-the-ear hearing aid for the hearing impaired, and here's a smart cane mobile technology for the visually impaired. As the student moves through social, generational, and cultural contexts, children and young adults who desire to fit in with their healthy peers tend to abandon much-needed AT. Many young people with disabilities are self-conscious about their disability and feel that utilizing technology draws attention to them and their disability. Some cultures view the use of technology to help accomplish tasks in a negative manner. In other words, they feel like relying on assistive technology will prohibit or hinder them from developmental milestones. So here, devices that are being abandoned by young adults, I chose an insulin pump. My son's girlfriend wears one, and she actually wears it on her back. And when wearing tight clothing, you can see the pump. And because we are very self-conscious of what we wear and how we look, she doesn't want to wear it, although it will keep her healthy. Next is a young man who does not have on his hearing aid. And I see this in high school setting and in some middle schools where students will struggle to hear rather than wear their technology because they don't want to stand out with their peers. Products are designed with the intent to enhance the lives of consumers. So this is across the board. It doesn't necessarily have to do with assistive technology. We can talk about makeup, our cell phones, our TVs, kitchen aids. When considering AT product design, it may be considered a subset of universal design. It provides technology-based assistance to those with physical or cognitive impairments or limitations. Users prefer that AT devices are appealing, but they also don't want to use devices that bring unwanted attention. Aesthetics affect how the device is perceived, not just by the user, but also around the user. A good example of good product design is Apple, who now allows AAC or communication apps for those who have designated devices. They don't need those big bulky devices anymore. They can use their phone or their iPad. Here, I show bad product design. So here on top, the first picture shows a handicapped toilet with the toilet paper inconveniently out of reach from the toilet. Next, we have a handicap ramp that is accessible with 2 steps. Is it handicapped or not? Here, we have a blocked handicap parking spot. There's no entryway for somebody with a wheelchair to get in or out. All bad designs. Leadership, in my eyes, starts with the government. So we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, of 1990, and it prohibits discrimination, ensures equal opportunity for persons with disabilities in employment, state and local government services, public accommodations, commercial facilities, and transportation. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973. It was established to authorize grants to states for vocational rehabilitation services with special emphasis on services to those with most severe handicaps. Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This ensures that all children with disabilities are entitled to a free and appropriate public education to meet their unique needs and prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. Excuse me. So here I just have a little cheat sheet with each of the policies that were put in place: the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act in 1975. Multidisciplinary fields. I have many here. First, we start off with the AT specialist. They provide services that are designed to assist people with disability to choose, acquire, and use AT devices. The speech language pathologist may evaluate a combination of the client's speech, language, fluency, literacy, voice, and or swallowing skills to determine if intervention is needed. Next, we have occupational therapists who help people across the lifespan participate in the things they want and need to do through therapeutic use of everyday activities or occupations. Deaf and hard of hearing services are for eligible students with a documented hearing loss that negatively impacts communication skills and or access the core curriculum. Teachers of the visually impaired. They travel from school to school and they provide special materials, consultation with school personnel, and individualized instruction in disability-specific skills that encompass what is known as the expanded core curriculum. So here we have the team in action. Here's a speech pathologist working with a kid right here. We have an occupational therapist working with an older adult, working on his fine motor skills. We have a teacher for the visually impaired, and we also have a deaf and hard of hearing specialist. So why are devices being abandoned? Technology has been developed to allow people with disabilities to live more independent lives. Government has established laws to protect people with disabilities, and multidisciplinary fields and specialized rehabilitation facilities have been introduced to train people with disabilities to use assistive devices. Stigma. There are several reasons why devices are being abandoned. However, the one that stands out is stigma. And so stigma being the umbrella. Underneath the umbrella of stigma is device aesthetics and cosmetics, gender and age appropriateness, social acceptability, sublimation and professional deference, teachers and their acceptance of disability, and also there's a little bit of universal design stigma. So device aesthetics and cosmetics. Levels of comfort with use, even around family members, vary widely depending on how unusual an AT device appears. Feelings of being noticeable leave many users feeling stigmatized. How any particular individual feels about him or herself when using AT can be tied to self-esteem, to the degree to which the person will reach out to others and initiate relationships, and ultimately one's social participation or avoidance. Gender and age appropriateness. While women with developmental disabilities are equally very skilled in using technologies for communication, mobility, learning, and the performance of daily tasks, the number of these women involved in the design and development such as products is very small. In the area of an AT's appearance, one can conclude that the preferences of adolescents will be different than adults. Adolescents with disabilities tend to be are more concerned with their appearance and projected image than older adults. Social acceptability. Social acceptability of AT use can be identified as one of the critical elements impacting whether or not a particular device is used by a person with a developmental disability and family. Public behavior, such as AT usage, activates cognitive, social, and motivational forces that align a person's self-use with those of others. Individuals with developmental disabilities and their families may be the heightened sense of attention AT may cause. People who feel themselves to be under greater scrutiny in social settings may feel that their behavior is more public, which may be at odds with strongly held collectivist cultural values that emphasize a group member versus individual recognition. So one may feel like they're standing out, but in a collectivist culture, they might not even be paying attention to the disability. Sublimation and professional deference. Some family members may view that the professional's opinion has more value than their own because the professional knows what's best for the family. Family feels a sense of loss of power, and rather than expressing their concerns about the stigmatizing effects of the recommended devices, family members may simply acquiesce to and publicly indicate acceptance through nodding their head and in agreement to implement devices, which subsequent abandonment of their use in public social settings, it's inevitable. Teachers and the acceptance of disability. The growing research on inclusion of students with developmental disabilities indicates the most critical factors for successful inclusion are attitude of the teacher, learning environment, including resources, and peer acceptance. I imagine that teachers trained in both AT and cultural diversity may be more inclined to invite a child with a developmental disability into his or her classroom environment. Teachers should also have a responsibility to provide information to other students in the classroom regarding AT use by a particular child to promote acceptance. When teachers assist students in understanding that AT used by a child with a developmental disability, the negative impact of stigma, it can be minimized. Universal design stigma. For several decades, professionals have been advocating For several decades, professionals have been advocating universal design as a way to create products and environments that are usable for all people in our society, regardless of age or disability. Products and spaces are designed only for people. So one of the stigma, products and design are only for people with disabilities, and older adults will always be more expensive, appear different, and have stigma associated with their usage. Universal design is a concept intended to increase the market for and production of products and environments that are usable by everyone to the greatest extent possible, we hope. In conclusion, there is sufficient literature to support stigma as a major cause of device abandonment. No matter how much money or time is spent, to create a fully accessible environment, develop assistive products, how many laws are passed to protect people with disabilities and include individuals in the least restricted environment in the educational setting, no matter how many facilities are built to rehabilitate people with disabilities and specialized fields are created to train people to use their devices and live more independent lives, they still cannot replace the feeling that individuals have when thinking about their disability and the prescribed devices they require. Strong cultural views and decades of scrutiny are both driving forces of feeling stigmatized. We have come a long way, but we continue to struggle to provide services and goods that will allow people with disabilities to feel fully included. Stop the stigma. Ending it starts with you. And here are all the references.